Alright, so this is a second lecture about rendering in Houdini, and today I'm going to talk about rendering different passes, rendering caustic. So first let's talk about caustic. The caustic is an optical effect based on refraction, and refraction is basically when the ray changes the angle or change the path according to refraction index of material. And refraction index is basically tells how the ray will change its way. So here is few images. It's just simple math, but yeah. And here is a photo of this effect. So you can see that ray comes in the air. It goes straight, then it comes to the glass and changes its path just because the glass has more refraction index than air. And then it changes its path again because it changed the material it goes through. So the caustic is effect which is based on this thing. So for example, on this image, you can see that this white spot is it's basically a rays focused on this point. So it comes through this glass, then it comes through water, from glass again, and then it comes out to the air, and that's how photons become focused on the ground. So there is a lot of examples of caustic, and we see it every day, every time, everywhere. And this is really heavy effect for computation on machines, but from year to year it becomes easier, and sometimes we can see it in real time. So now I will tell you how to render it in Houdini. And to do this, let's open a new scene. And let's create a grid. This will be our ground, or the surface which will catch the photons. Okay, let's call it ground. And let's create, for example, a sphere. Like this. Let's lift it a bit. Alright, and to make caustic, we need a light. So to do this, I will create just a spotlight first. Let's say from this point. And let's split our work area on two parts. Render you. Yeah, we need render you. Okay, let's hit render. And that's how it looks for now. So the caustic must be on this place according to light position. Alright, and to do this, I need to create a caustic light. So hit Control, click. Oops. So I crashed, as you saw, and I recreate the same scene. So I have the light, I have ground, I have sphere. So, and that's how my render looks. Alright, so to make caustic, I need to create a caustic light. I hit click Control on the caustic light, and this appears here. And no changes here, just because I need to click render button again. And you saw that I had photon map generation here. Okay, it goes really fast. And still no caustic, just because my sphere material doesn't work like this. So I need to create a glass. So let's take glass. And let's assign it to a sphere. Okay, now it should look like this. And this brighter spot, this is a fake caustic, which is generated by shader. And you need to turn it off by selecting shader by itself, then go to opacity, and on the bottom you can find enable Fox caustic. Well, this parameter can be useful sometimes if you need some simple effect. So you can control it, but this is a fake. It's really fast, but it's fake and it looks ugly. Okay, let's turn this off. And now let's click render button one more time. And now you see that we have a really nice caustic here, which is generated by emitting photons from light, which comes through this sphere and then hitting the ground, and that's how it looks. Okay, so let's talk a bit about Caustic Light by itself. So let's go to the object network, select Caustic Light, and here you can find all the parameters. And okay, first let's talk about light type. Currently it stands like a caustic photon map, and it generates only photons for caustic, but I can change it for irradiance only, render it, and this will work for global illumination. So we can try different types here just to check how it looks. Alright, so we need a caustic photon map. Here I can change light color, and this affects only photons color. So I can set something like this, and yeah, that's affecting only the photons by itself. Okay, let's bring it back. Light intensity, I can make photons really weak or really strong. And for example, I will create one more wall here. Okay, let's create this. Alright, something like that. So my photons will hit the wall, and I have camera here, so I need to move it like this. And okay, my wall's on the wrong place because my light source is from here, so I will place camera something like that. And my walls should be something like this. Okay, so now it stands correct. And I can change my caustic light direction. So, well, when I'm changing the caustic light, I need to render it again. So now you see that it's too bright. So let's bring it back. Okay. Yeah, something like this. So it's probably invisible for you, but I can see that photons is bouncing from the ground and hitting the wall here. Just little spots. And let's bring it back to 1. I will decrease the spotlight brightness so I can see my photons and how it looks. Well, maybe just a bit. Something like this. So you see the photons is bouncing from the ground and hitting the wall. And these spots, they actually undesirable normally. And to avoid them, we need to apply a filter here in the options. So let's go back to Caustic Light, select it. And here we have few options. First of all, we can increase photon count, but this will increase the render time significantly. And as I showed you in the previous lecture, you can turn on the console, which will show you how much time it takes to render a frame. So you need to go to Mantra render engine node, and then in command line you need to choose verbose output and hit render. Alright, and now it's black. Why so? Alright, my light is here. Probably it's for generating photon map, you need to have at least some intensity on your light, because, for example, if I generate it like this, it'll be really bright. You can see that the photons is really strong. Then I can set it to 0 just to check my photon map. Yeah. Okay. So now my render time is 8 seconds. And let's make a snapshot of this. Alright. And now let's go back to Caustic Light and set it to 5 times more. Don't forget to set a bit of light. And hit render again. So it's generated photon map. Now I can set my spotlight to 0. Let's wait a bit. Okay, it took 2 minutes 10 seconds to render this, and the difference is, well, difference is pretty obvious, but okay, let me show. Yeah. Okay, so this little feature, it helps to compare 2 snapshots. So you can see the difference in quality, and it's really visible. But again, render time was increased from 10 seconds to 2 minutes. So this is not the best way to avoid these spots. And even with 500,000 photons, we'll still have the spots. So the second way to improve the quality is increase filter samples and prefilter photon map. Okay, let's go back to active render. Let's bring default photon number. Spotlight. Check that it has some intensity. Like this. Hit render. Okay. And let's turn this off. So this is 100,000 polygons. Okay, now let's go back to Caustic Light and set filter samples to 1000 instead of 100. And you see that immediately picture become really smooth. And that's because filter is really strong and it just blur everything and kill all the details. So you need to find a reasonable number which will keep all your details and not blur it too much. And the benefit of this way is that you don't have to re-render your photon map, so it takes it from file, this one. And yeah, if you don't like this file, and you probably shouldn't like this file, so you need to create your own. And you should click on this icon here. And first, you need to save your scene. And click on this icon. Okay, and let's type some photon map. Photons. Yeah, okay. .p map. Photon map. Alright, image become black. It's because Houdini can't find this file. This is normal, so let's go back and render it again. Okay, like this. So now we have the file which called photons, and it has all the information about photons we just emitted. Alright, so blurriness is okay, spots are still here, and we have another option is to prefilter photon map, and I need to select my file here. Alright, and hit render. So again, this blurs really heavy blur. Yeah, okay. It's just a technical break. Okay, and the Caustic Light, and here, Prefilter Photon Map, it works, but after adjusting settings here, you have to re-render your photon map. While the filter samples here, it works without re-rendering the photon map. So first I will set my filter samples to 0 here, set prefilter samples here and the ratio here, and hit render. Okay, I need just a little bit of value here. So I will set my photon light color to blue, just to be able to see it. Alright, so it's coming here, here, and here. And if I set my filter samples and render again, it's a full color. Yeah, okay, something like this. So right? And the prefilter ratio is basically compressing amount of photons in a map. Well, I would set it to 0.5. Okay, and render it again. And my spotlight. This is not really cool, but that's how it works. Alright. So now I can blur it by filter samples, and I will select this small area just for sake of speed. So now you see that image become really blurred and soft, which is unnatural because caustic normally is really sharp effect, as you can see here. Well, the only way to reach this effect is to increase amount of photons and increase render time. That's why I told you that this is really expensive calculations. So if I set photon number to 1 million and prefilter to 150, for example, and re-render my image, you can see that rendering already takes, generating photon map takes a lot of time. But if I turn off light now, like so, we can see that photon map is almost clear. Small spots around, but if I turn off filtering, for example, like this, yeah, there is still a lot of spots. So I will go back and let's emit 10 million photons and hit render. And also sphere, not the best example of caustic, so after this render I will replace geometry to, for example, torus, because it has more surfaces for array coming through, so this should produce more interesting result. And as you can see, prefiltering takes also a lot of time, so the more difficult photon map, the more it takes. But this is like a necessary step because this should help to render a clean image. Okay, map is generated. Let's turn off light. Yeah, and the image is really, it looks like it's grainy, but this is just photons. And I can turn off after generate photon map. So this will take the photon information from file. And now I can blur it. And don't be afraid that Houdini will regenerate my photon map or something like this. So on this amount of photons, the filtering of the photon map doesn't help a lot. So I will turn off prefilter photon map and the image become white, just because too much photons and they're too strong, right? And let's set it to 100. Let's re-render the photon map. So I believe that huge amount of photons will produce clean image by itself without filtering. So let's check how it looks. So now we have on the 1 million 1 million photons, and it's possible to blur it a bit. Yeah, but again, this image, when we're looking only at photons, it's noisy, but when we're rendering the whole image, it looks not so bad. So if I set it back to 1, yeah, but rendering is really slow. Okay, I'll bring it back to 100,000 and hit render, and I will replace my sphere object to torus as I promised. Let's turn it a bit. Like this. And you see that caustic, which has been generated for sphere, is still here. So I need to regenerate my my map. And let's make torus nicer. Okay, like so. And hit re-render. So photon map is generated again for this object. And if I turn off light, you can see that it's just focus light around here. And if I drop a few more light source to scene, like so, and hit render button again, this will create a new caustic. So now you have an idea about how to generate photons and how to render it. But what if you have animation and you want to render the whole sequence of photon map, and you're sure that you're not gonna rebuild it again? So you basically want to cache it. Alright, there is a way. Let's stop the rendering, and let's create a simple animation on this torus. Set keyframe, and something like this. Okay, so now I have simple animation, and for example, in this frame, caustic will look like this. While on this frame, this will be like this. So it should change from frame to frame. And there is a way how to cache it. So we have our photons map, but to cache it we need to go to out network, and let's create a new mantra node. New mantra. Let's check out that it's our camera, and then we need to go to render tab, and instead of ray tracing we need to select photon map generation. Okay, and let's define a frame range from 1 to 6, right? And hit render button. And I forgot one important thing, that before you press render button, you need to go to Caustic Light, and in photon file name, you need to set file name with $F4, which stands for frame. $F is for current frame, and 4 stands for padding of the file name. So hit enter, and then go back to out and hit render. And you can find all your photon maps in your heap folder. This is a folder where your project is saved, so that's where you need to find it. Okay, and now we can visualize our map, and to do this we need to create geometry. Dive inside, and in file you need to select your photon map like this. Alright, so this white spot, this is my photons. So you see it changed over time. Especially here when it's focused. So that's how you cache photon map, and then you can render it. But just to make sure that it's not generated over and over again, you need to go to Caustic Light and turn off auto generate photon map. So now this will render image really fast, just because it doesn't need to generate photon map again and again. And don't forget to switch from snapshot to active render. So it renders. And now if I go to frame 6, this will reload my photon map, and this will reload it here. Well, still it takes a bit of time to reload all these files, so you must be patient. And Caustic is really expensive effect, so you should think twice if you need this. Alright, so now let's talk about rendering with passes. And yeah, let it clear first. Yeah, okay. Rendering with passes allows you to have more control about final image when you're compositing it. For example, you can add or decrease reflection, and or make ambient occlusion brighter or darker or something like this. So to render with passes, we need to create a simple scene, something really simple, just sphere, box, I don't know, it's up to you. Alright, let's create a camera, put it like this, and I will create environment light. This is a surrounding light, so it just looks like this. Alright, and let's assign simple materials to our objects. Okay, first I will start with clay, and assign clay 1 to this, clay 2 to box, and red and green. Okay. And let's make our ground reflective. So, for example, stainless steel material. So it reflects light, and it has a reflection by itself. We can have control here. So, but for now, let's leave it default. Okay. To render, we need to go to out network, and let's create a new mantra. All right, and to set new passes, we need to go to Properties tab, Output tab, and here we can find extra image planes. Let's hit on plus, and in Vex variable, we can find a lot of different presets. So for now, let's render direct reflectivity, for example. All right, I will call it reflectivity. Okay, if I hit render now, it will renders, but I don't have access to my pass. To get access to the passes, we need to render not in interactive, but we shall use non-interactive. So it must have MD here. Okay, click render. And once rendering is over, there is direct reflectivity pass. Well, it looks a bit weird, but basically the sphere is here and the box is here, and then it just blurred really hard. Okay, but let's render more obvious passes. So to do this, let's render direct and shadowed. Okay, and shadowed, and direct shadow made. Okay, and let's render. So now I have 3 images, and this one is like master image, this one is just shadow, and this is plain color. So on compositing, I can add shadow to plain image and have control about how hard my shadows is. Alright, so this is rendering with passes. Alright, but here on predefined image planes, there is no ambient occlusion. So now I will show how to add this to image plane so you can render it. But okay, this is a normal one, so you can render normals. Alright, so let's delete everything. And to render ambient occlusion, let's go back to our shop network, and let's create just one material which will be applied to everything. Okay, render. Okay, this looks like ambient occlusion. But what if I want to have my colors in the scene like this and ambient occlusion? Alright, to do this, I need to go to my material. So let's say clay, double click on this, and I want to maximize it. Alright, so I maximized this so you can see it better. And this is clay material. Alright, now I need to hit tab and type occlusion. This. And this will create the occlusion path for the material. So it will render anytime you render something. Okay, occlusion, and now I need to create a parameter. Alright, if you hit P on the keyboard, you will get the parameters of the node. And if you select occlusion node, you can see that we have a lot of different parameters, number of samples, which is familiar, ray distance, PS, and background environment, and so on and so on. Okay, first of all, let's set up our parameter, and I will call it AO for ambient occlusion. Type float is fine, and in export I need to change never to always. Okay, and attach occlusion to input like this. Alright, now I need to promote all of these parameters so user don't need to dive here and change it manually. Well, not manually, but user don't need to dive here. So to do this, I middle mouse button click or wheel click on the box and click promote parameter. Do it on all of them. This will promote it to higher level. So now I'm inside of shader, but if I go back one level up to clay, I can find all my parameters here. This doesn't look nice, but you can manually make it look better. I will show you in a moment. But currently, let's work with this. Okay, ambient occlusion. Oh, I need to hide this, make it invisible. Alright, so now we have all our ambient occlusion parameters here on top. Okay, I need to set background color to 1. Number of samples I will set like 32 for faster rendering, and maximum ray distance, let's say 10. I'm not sure, just guessing, so I need to do some tests to figure out which number I need. Okay, and now I will stop this render. Now I need to go back to my out network, and here in properties output tab I need to create an extra image plane, so I hit plus. But Houdini doesn't recognize custom layers, custom passes, so I need manually type ambient occlusion AO. This is name. This is my name. I wrote in a note. All right. So now I can render. So I hit render button and waiting a second. Alright, the image was black because I made few mistakes, and now I will tell which one. So first of all, I need to go to out network, and in output picture from non-interactive switch to interactive. What it does for us is that I can now have my layers here instead of like image sequence. I have it like layers. Alright, this is fix number 1. Okay, fix number 2. Let's go to Shop Network and dive back into Material. And let's find our parameter and occlusion node. In parameter, I forgot to switch type from float, which is standing by default, to color, because I need to output color. Alright, this is two mistakes I made, and Houdini doesn't like it, and therefore I had a wrong result. But now, if I hit render, you see it renders fine, and I switch to my ambient occlusion, and I have my sphere on the sphere, and this is fine because I set up occlusion only for clay material. So let's say if I apply the same material to the ground and to the box like this, and then render, I will have ambient occlusion for all of my objects. Alright, so this is one of the ways to do the ambient occlusion, and this is the best way I know, the easiest and most efficient. So let's bring it back. Okay, so let's repeat one more time. You create extra image plane, you type your variable name, and you render. So I create one more. I don't know, something direct reflectivity again. And hit render. Okay, that's fine. Direct reflectivity and color. So now it works perfectly. By using the same technique, you can create different passes. So let me show. For example, well, clay is kind of simple material. So let's create a mantra surface, and let's assign it to sphere. Okay, let's dive inside of mantra surface, and you see that this is way more advanced material. I will maximize window. So here we have base reflection, opacity, displacement, all the parameters you need. Okay. Bump color, normal. Alright, and let's say you want to have occlusion pass here. So you create occlusion, same way, parameter. Change type to color, AO, export always, and connect. For now, it's not necessary to promote these parameters, but I'll do just to remind you how to do this. Alright, I have ambient occlusion pass, but let's see which passes also can be created. So in the materials, let's create wireframe. Yeah. Okay, wireframe. It doesn't follow the actual wireframe of the object. It just just wireframe, so you'll see in a moment. So I will copy paste this wireframe. Okay, and let's copy paste one more time, but attach this to opacity. So it will create a wireframe and alpha channel to this. Like so. Okay, let's go back. And now I need to create more image plane and type wireframe and wireframe opacity. All right, let's render and see what we get. Okay, this is color. This is wireframe. It doesn't have alpha channel, but here is an alpha. All right, and my ambient occlusion here is black, which is fine because I haven't set up it properly again. Not again, but I didn't set the values. The background color must be 1. Like so. It's actually possible to set it up directly in the material so you won't miss it next time. And if you select occlusion node, you can set 1 here, like so. So this will be 1 by default on here on top. All right, so this is wireframe. And on compositing, it's possible to put it on top. All right, so here is few more interesting stuff. One is a really useful thing, well, not useful, but nice looking, and maybe sometimes useful. Thin film, for example, and I just copy paste my parameter. It's a standard like I've used here, and apply color, hit render, and this creates a thin thin film, yeah, like it's called, and it's possible to animate all the parameters. Let's select environment map. It's just reflecting everything. And time is affecting the noise pattern here. All right. So also there is fire, which can be useful for faking the fire. There's a lot of parameters, as you see. So let's render this. And it creates not bad fire. I will apply the mantra surface to the ground, like so, and render. Yeah. So this can be used to create different fake fires. Banana skin is just funny. So something like this. And you can try to find more different stuff by yourself here. And the parameters are pretty self-describing here, color and alpha. This can be an issue with incoming parameters, so you need to investigate them in help. And the Houdini has really nice help, so you can find a lot of different information here about almost anything you want. Alright, and this creates mosaic. And still, this is in a pass, so I have all the previous passes and alpha, and you can record them, you can write them as a separate file. Alright, so this was a lecture about rendering by passes, rendering caustic, and yeah, that's probably all. Thanks for watching.